Hello and welcome to Get the Table, another wrestling roundtable discussion podcast with myself, Adam Wilbourn, Adam Clery, and Andy Murray from WhatCulture, here to discuss another burning wrestling issue. But before we get into it, if you're a fan of this sort of thing, make sure you subscribe to WhatCulture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from for daily wrestling podcasts where we review Raw, SmackDown, the Wednesday Night War between AEW and NXT, pay-per-views, we have interviews, roundtable discussions like this one, and a roundup of the week, complete with a bloody good quiz, of course, on WrestleCulture. But as I said, joined by Andy Murray and Adam Clery to talk. Well, before we get into that, gents, we are gathered here today, almost messed that up there, but recovered it, to talk about reasons to be excited for WrestleMania 36. Adam Clery is just days away. How are you feeling and what is making you excited?
Should be a laugh, yeah? Why not? Now, in all seriousness, I don't know how people can not be excited for this WrestleMania. Like, they've gone to these lengths to be like, it's the only WrestleMania that's too big for both nights. And you just know that that's like panicked backstage, like clever wordplay for this is going to be an unmitigated disaster. Please, please, please tune in so we can recoup at least some of the money back. And it's just, there will never be another WrestleMania like this. Like, regardless of how good or bad it is, this is a once in a lifetime, like, pandemic-stricken WrestleMania. It's the television event of the year after Tiger King.
Yeah, nothing's beating Tiger King.
Andy Murray, you've written a really good article about this about WhatCulture.com, and that's kind of one of the things you talk about there. Is, I suppose, the general term you just dub it with is weirdness. Weirdness, not just in the matches, but in the way they're going to be presented. And like Adam Clery says, you know, akin to the person who watched or attended the first WrestleMania or some of the most iconic WrestleManias, it will be one of those things that years down the line you can be like, yes, WrestleMania 36.
Yeah, I mean, the sheer weirdness of it all is definitely the biggest selling point for me at the moment. Like, what the hell is a Boneyard Match? We know it's in a cemetery. We know it's some kind of buried alive thing. But other than that, we don't know anything. What is a Firefly Funhouse match? Is it going to be like the day glow bright aesthetic of the Firefly Funhouse segments with the Fiend haunting John Cena and John Cena doing his weird hammy acting in response to all of this? What on earth are Edge and Randy Orton going to do? This bitter, hate-filled rivalry. They're going to be talking, they're going to be cutting promos on each other the whole match long. And, you know, the phrase too big for one night is just the most ironic thing of all time because it's literally the smallest WrestleMania ever in terms of like the building size and the grandiosity of the whole thing. I find this whole show really, really intoxicating from a perverse kind of perspective because the AJ Styles Undertaker thing could rule, or it could be the most accidentally hilarious thing of all time. There's great potential.
In fairness, that was true before any of this happened. AJ Styles versus Undertaker could well rule, or it could also be two men the wrong side of 40 just falling down on each other.
Which in itself would rule. Like,
exactly right.
You want your wrestling, I say this all the time, you want a 7 out of 10 or above, or a 2 out of 10 and below. And baby, right. I think it could be either.
Well, you are the man behind the Absolute Mess series at WhatCulture.com, Andy Murray, and I essentially already sort of pre-written an article ahead of this weekend. But having said that, I think the current situation is probably the best thing that could have possibly happened to AJ Styles versus The Undertaker. I was chatting to the Dudley boys about this earlier, about this Boneyard match. And I think that with the fact that it's obviously all pre-recorded, it's all been put in the can last week even, yes, I mean, I'm not anticipating a 5-star match between AJ Styles and The Undertaker, but you would sense that any botches akin to the dodgy choke slams we've seen him do, or, for example, the thing we saw on Monday Night Raw, the main event of WrestleMania that was ruined, should be fixed by the fact it's all pre-recorded. And this sort of links into another thing that you suggested is the reason why we should look forward to WrestleMania 36, Andy Murray, and that is the multiple endings that WWE have shot.
Yeah, exactly. Like, one of the big things with this pre-taped format was, it's all going to be spoiled and stuff's going to get out and yada, yada, yada. The biggest show of the year is going to be ruined. But we haven't seen a sniff of a spoiler yet, which is great because it means that if the information has leaked out, and it's less likely to do that because there's no crowds there, if it has leaked out, people are just holding on to it because they don't want to be dicks and ruin, people's valuable escapism when the world around us is a raging dumpster fire that gets worse by the day. it's really, really critical. And WWE deserve a lot of credit, actually, for shooting these two endings to every big match, because if something does come out, say tomorrow, Johnny Peep from Pro Wrestling Fanny or whatever says that The Undertaker beat AJ Styles and is somehow the 24/7 champion. Well, that could be bollocks, and it might not be the finish that WWE go with on the night. It's kind of a masterstroke from them. I mean, we say this on the news every day. There's no good option in any of this, right? Postponing WrestleMania is a bad option. Holding WrestleMania under these circumstances is a bad option. I don't think anyone can say really one is better than the other because there's so many variables at it. But things like taping both finishes, it's just completely destroyed all prospect of spoilers hitting the internet. No matter what, you're going to be able to wake up on Saturday or watch live or whatever and see a show that you don't know what the hell's going to happen because, they've covered every base.
I should do that with every show going forward, I think. Just tape every possible... Like, nobody cares that Raw's live. Like, I know we tune in to see, like, random things happen and that, but just... by and large, a couple of sloppy botches or somebody forgetting a line of their promo, would that not be just better if it was replaced by multiple possible endings, infinite timelines, infinite realities where WWE can sculpt any story they want the week after they filmed it?
Create your own adventure type.
Yeah.
You'd get no more bad crowd reaction because if there was something that we were absolutely furious about, they'd just be like, okay, but now what if we did it the other way where you get what you like? Who knows? I'm basically going to treat any spoiler that I read about WrestleMania 36 like a tweet from Brad Shepard, which is probably bollocks.
Mute button.
Which is every morning we wake up on Twitter and there's like 10, 20 goobers being like, hey, what would you think if so-and-so beat so-and-so at the so-and-so pay-per-view? And like the response you just have to give is, well, I mean, so what? Any potential spoilers that leak is exactly the same. What do you think if AJ Styles beats The Undertaker and he phenomenal bone arms him into the pit of destiny and Michelle McCool's there? It's like, well, yeah, I guess it could happen.
Indeed. Adam Clery, what do you make of the fact that this is too big for one night, a 2-day WrestleMania? Do you think this could be the change that we see going forward? I mean, you were there at WrestleMania 35 that lasted a day last year, I think it was.
I was there in body. I don't know if I was quite there in spirit. WrestleMania has, for about 2 or 3 years now, needed to be a 2-night event. It's not fair on the crowd. It's not fair on the performers. Like Becky Lynch beating Ronda Rousey and Charlotte Flair should have been it was the biggest payoff to their longest running story. And it was greeted by everybody going, oh, thank God, I hope we still haven't missed the train. Like, it's such a shame. And it's a disservice to the work the performers do building up to this. And I think when you think about all the other events that go on now, we know that the Hall of Fame is worth sacrificing. We know that NXT takeovers can move to a Friday and not be too badly hurt by that. WrestleMania should be a Saturday and Sunday night event. And genuinely, it's such a kindness on the part of WWE to make this. Is it 3 hours 15 each night's going to be now? Yeah, it's such a kindness on their part to do that. And I think going forward, like, it's just, I know they've done this because they don't think anybody's going to sit there and watch 6.5 hours of empty room wrestling, and putting it in bite-sized chunks is going to, be far more easy for the audience to digest. But I just think if any lessons can be learned from this going forward, and my God, there are about 1 million of them, this should be the major one.
Andy, do you see that as how they're going to do things going forward? I mean, effectively, like Adam Clery said, the weekend, or whatever you want to call it, of WrestleMania would have to become NXT TakeOver on Thursday night, SmackDown Friday, 2 days of WrestleMania, and then the Raw and SmackDown and NXTs and stuff after WrestleMania the week after that, with the Hall of Fame, I don't know, shoved somewhere in there. What do you make of that, Andy Murray?
It does create a bit of a content cram, but in this era, that has never stopped WWE from doing anything. This is the more, throw as much stuff out there as possible and blanket all forms of platforms. So for me, I'm actually quite surprised that it's something they haven't already done, because if you do a 2-night WrestleMania, you're not selling 90,000 tickets for both nights. But as we saw with New Japan this year, they sold something like 35,000 for the first and 25 for the second. Who's to say WWE couldn't sell, I don't know, 65 and 50 or something like that? It's an opportunity to sell more stuff, sell more tickets, potentially sell more merch if, say, people are skipping one night and going to the other. And of course, it's very audience friendly as well. Maybe not as much if you're traveling and you have to stay an extra night or whatever, but as far as the viewer at home goes, oh my God, what a difference it'll make, especially if you're in Europe, my God, and you don't have to sit up to 6 a.m. every time. But like the live experience when you're there in the building and these 8-hour shows or whatever is draining, no matter how good the content, like Clery said. You can have the best match in the world at the very end, and it doesn't matter because 3 hours ago, Daniel Bryan and Kofi Kingston just blew your tits off. You know, you're spent, you're done, you're exhausted. I'm all for it, and depending on how this goes down, it'll be hard to gauge the reaction because there's no crowd there. But if all goes smoothly and there's good response from like network viewers and pay-per-view buyers and stuff, I think it's something that we could very well see in the future.
I think if WWE want to look at anything for a reason to do this, it's music festivals. Like, just take the UK, for example. I know none of them are on this yet, but like, imagine if Glastonbury was one day and you had to cram, like, you know, like Bruce Springsteen was on in the afternoon because, you know, you had another headliner later on. Music festivals don't struggle to get people to come back Friday, Saturday, Sunday to buy weekend-long tickets. If you had fan conventions and access in the arena during the afternoons, for example, before setting up for the shows later in the night, you would not have a problem filling these out. I genuinely think, I know it's not been done before, but I think they could easily take a 60, 70, possibly 80,000 seat arena and have a bum on every seat for every single night of that if they really pushed it properly.
I'm inclined to agree. I think, you know, we've discussed this numerous occasions in theory up until what happened. But I think you're right. I think it's the best of both worlds.
Stop saying what happened like you've been caught having an affair or something.
The incident. Yeah, I just think, like you say, it's the best of both worlds. You're not dragging it out for 8-9 hours. Two sittings of 4 and a bit hours is far more manageable. And, you know, what did we learn from, well, we haven't got time to go into everything we learned from CM Punk leaving WWE, but he was pissed he didn't get to main event WrestleMania. You get twice as many WrestleMania main events this way.
Nah, the main event of WrestleMania is the Sunday night.
Okay. Well, still, it's going to be another way for WWE saying, oh, we've got 4 main events this year and what have you. Andy Murray, I can't believe I'm about to say this, banter aside, so I'm going to disregard the Boneyard match and the Fiend versus John Cena match. Andy Murray, putting those to one side, what match are you most looking forward to this weekend?
Sami Zayn and Daniel Bryan have never wrestled one-on-one in WWE, and they're 2 of the best wrestlers of their generation. I mean, it's really lame, easy analysis to sit here and go, oh, well, it's Sami Zayn and Daniel Bryan. Of course it will be good. But it's Sami Zayn and Daniel Bryan. Of course it will be good. These guys, on recent weeks on television, have shown that they can work magic in just like 4 minutes. Like that Daniel Bryan-Cesaro match the other week was an absolute ripper, and it was barely as long as the bloody commercial break that broke it up. They could have been assigned 5 or 6 minutes, and I still think it's going to bang. You've got the appeal of the program. You've got the appeal of it being Sami's first singles match in a long, long time. When was the last time he had a proper focused singles match? It might have been a couple of years ago. He hasn't had one at all since he came back. Daniel Bryan's a wrestling genius. He's sitting out his contract. He's just having fun with his mates, screwing around with Drew Gulak, having matches with Cesaro, fanning around with Sami. I think it's a recipe for excellence, and they will find ways to make it work in that quiet building. It's not like the ladder match where it's maybe a little bit more dependent on pops and big moments and stuff. They're going to create little intricate moments of battle that are going to leap off your TV screen because they're going to hang there with the lack of noise. It's going to be beautiful. I can't wait to see how it goes down. But I'm also really looking forward to Goldberg versus Braun if that's the match, because coming out of it, right, you got to think Roman's going to be first in line for a title shot. Well, Braun versus Roman was an awesome feud in 2017. It brought out the best in both guys. It made Braun a star. And if Goldberg wins, you're getting Goldberg versus Reigns. And their interactions, their face-to-faces, their promos have been really intense. And they can absolutely do the Goldberg-Lesnar thing a few years ago where they just smashed into each other with spears and stuff for 5 minutes. It's a beautiful thing. Beef.
Adam Clery, what matches are you looking for?
I was going to go down the exact same route of, it's really obvious for me to say, it's Sami Zayn and Daniel Bryan. Of course it'll be good, but it's Sami Zayn and Daniel Bryan. Of course it will be good. So thank you, Andy, for covering that for me. I was kind of in the middle of the road about what match I was looking forward to seeing most. And then I saw that BT Sport promo they did.
Yes.
Him on the top of the mountain going, Lesnar! And all of a sudden, I grew 4 inches. I've kind of beefed out a little bit as a result. And just the sheer testosterone in that 2.5-minute video has rendered me erect for this match. Like, I'm genuinely fascinated to see how brutal, how meat slapping it actually is. But aside from that, I'd be doing my day job a disservice if I didn't say that Charlotte versus Rhea Ripley's going under the radar at the minute as a potential fantastic match.
Yeah, I mean, this, like you say there, Adam Clery, the matches are key, not just in terms of just an excitable showcase, an enjoyable experience with Sami Zayn and Daniel Bryan, less so there because it's the Intercontinental Championship. But yeah, we could see the coronation of Drew McIntyre as WWE Champion. And as you said, Adam Clery, we could see Rhea Ripley retaining her NXT Women's Championship against one of the best female wrestlers in the world right now.
Joe, I have to say, I got the fear there when I said it because this is all changing so quickly, and every single day there's something new happening. I realized as I said it, I hadn't seen visual confirmation this match was still on in the last 48 hours. So I was like, oh, do I try and style this out, make it sound like it was a joke just in case it's been cancelled? But no, like as soon as Charlotte won the Royal Rumble, and I think it was Hamflet, sat down as we recorded that podcast at about 4 a.m. that night and said, oh, never mind Raw and SmackDown. I want to see her go after the NXT Women's Championship. And a little light bulb just went off over both our heads at what an amazing idea that is. And while I know people have been not overly pleased with the way they've used Bianca Belair as kind of like a make weight or a buffer between the two of them in all this, I think the build to it's been excellent. I think Ripley's been one of the best booked stars in the entire company over the last 6 months, all the way back to Survivor Series. And in Charlotte, they just have someone who, if she retired tomorrow, would go down as one of, if not the greatest female wrestlers of all time in the company. I know people get annoyed that she gets all these different title reigns, but she is worthy of every single one of them. And I just hope they give that match the time it deserves, because both women are capable of putting on a show stealer, in my opinion.
I agree. I think, you've got the winner of the Women's Royal Rumble and a person who, as we consistently say, gets the best matches out of everyone she faces against one of the biggest up-and-coming stars in the entire wrestling world in Rhea Ripley, in my eyes. And Andy Murray, we haven't even had a chance so far to mention the match with the best build towards this year's WrestleMania, Edge versus Randy Orton.
Oh, you're going to say Otis versus Dolph.
Aleister Black versus Bobby Lashley, yeah.
Last man standing, Andy Murray. Can't wait for that.
Yeah, if any match is tailor-made to absolutely fly in this setting, it's these guys. Look what they've done with their promos in recent weeks. These guys have completely adapted their character approach to this strange alien setting that nobody ever thought would come to life. They both know what the hell they're doing, and I have the utmost confidence. I would bet my house, and I don't even own a goddamn house, on these guys somehow still managing to produce a WrestleMania caliber bout despite the noise. They're going to fight all over the place. They're going to go into the bit where the chairs used to be. They'll be on the stage. They'll be climbing up that bit that Elias got whoosh murdered on SmackDown this week. They're going to be cutting promos on each other all match long. You're going to feel the intensity, the personalness, the bitterness, the spite in everything they do. This ain't going to be Randy Orton just slapping on one of his headlocks and waiting for him, trying to milk some kind of crowd reaction, because he can't do that. I think they're going to craft the best possible pantomime through all of this. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be elaborate, but in a completely different way to these weird gimmick matches that we have on the show. I have all the faith in the world that this thing is going to be awesome. And I think that a lot of people are kind of weirdly forgetting about that and focusing too much on empty rooms and pre-taping it. Who cares? It's Edge and Randy Orton are going to kill it.
Clery?
Yes, that will also be good, in my opinion.
One final thing I wanted to mention, which is a nice sort of conclusion to all this, is the fact that, as it stands right now, we anticipate that if the lockdown is called off, we are going to continue with WWE. Aside from the fact they've already pre-taped the Raw after WrestleMania, we could get the NXT after WrestleMania, the SmackDown after WrestleMania, and what have you going forward. But the big thing here, I suppose, Andy Murray, is the fact this is going to be a sort of hard reset after all this.
Yeah, it's WrestleMania always has that appeal, right? So if you're not into this program or that program, and maybe Seth Rollins versus Kevin Owens is a good example of one that's lost a bit of steam, and a lot of people aren't digging on Becky Lynch versus Shayna Baszler. If you've had enough of those programs, you only have to endure them one more time. That's the appeal every single year. It's similar this time as well. After this one, we've got the prospect of potentially a longer break as well, because they've only taped up the Raw after Mania. Is Orange County, Florida going to have lifted their stay-at-home order by then? I'm not sitting there in that state. I'm not looking at the data, but at the moment, with the way things are going, it's not trending in that direction. So you're going to get a breather. You're going to get a break. They've already taped that Raw, so they know where they're going with people and programs and so forth coming out of this. That might be good. That might be a good thing. It's the same for Mania every year, man. Hard reset, start again. And, at the moment, with so much negativity surrounding these shows, that's really needed.
Clery, what do you reckon to a sort of season finale for WWE and a little pause?
I think even if you take away the arguments of why, wrestling would benefit from something like that, I think it's an absolute necessity at the minute. I think, as I said on the Global News Agency where I was asked yesterday, I said that I think wrestling's seen this as a bit of a too good an opportunity to miss, to be the only show in town with no other sport able to put, live or current broadcasting on. They can sculpt around it the way wrestling's produced. They can kind of they can just write people out of things if they need to. But I think now it's at the stage, I think Roman's going to be the turning point with this, where the safety of the performers needs to be made far more prevalent. And I just think, it's good to have escapism from all this. And yes, I'm really looking forward to WrestleMania to take my mind off it all for a couple of days. But there is the network, there is everything else going on. People are being, they're using their ingenuity to try and provide us with new versions of content. And I just think, is a couple hours of wrestling a week that we're going to lose out on. 3 for Raw, 2 for SmackDown, 2 for AEW, 2 for NXT. If it all just goes next week and everybody decides, look, the more important things right now, we need to put the performers first. We need to take a long break and come back when we can and do this properly. It's not going to be damaging to either product, I don't think, provided the networks are willing to fill the slots, provided there's not going to be any contractual issues with it. I just think, just give it a break. Let people go home, let people with their families, let people look after themselves. We've talked before a million times why wrestling there's too much of it. You should have breaks in the schedule anyway. But all of that aside, I think the smart thing to do is to have that Raw after WrestleMania, wrap everything up there, and then just forget about it for a little while, because all of that stuff.
Exactly. Let us know your thoughts on reasons to still be excited for WrestleMania 36 in the comments section below. We'll wrap it up there. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to What Culture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from for daily wrestling podcasts, whatever happens in the coming weeks. Plus, you can let us know your thoughts on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. And watch there, follow all three of us. You can follow Adam Clery at
Adam Clery, Clery.
Sunglasses back on, you git. You can follow Andy Murray at
Andy H. Murray. The H stands for Hangouts.
Hey, you can follow me at Adam Wilbourn. Follow us all at WhatCultureWWE. This has been Get the Table. My thanks to Adam Clery and to Andy Murray. Thank you for watching, and we will see you soon.